you're back to discuss TWA land proclamations for Region 3.
If I might, I've got two more slides. I've completely lost where I am, but I do have two more slides in my
Excuse
original
me. We're going to talk about cranes some more.
presentation. Could you get the lights for us? Thank you. Again, I shared this with you last month. Just wanted to share it again. The crane drawing this year has been moved from October during bow season up to August. That was a regional request, and we have secured the Birchwood Community Center. Again, they've been great partners for us. This will be the fourth year we've held it there, so thank you to the Birchwood Community Center. And then finally, just wanted to share this slide again. We shared this in April for the sake of the audience and the public regarding waterfowl seasons for next year. Again, we're in a new process, the new timing of when we set these regulations. We anticipate soliciting public input for all the waterfowl seasons, including cranes, from October 15th through November 15th this year. So we'll do a news release and we'll solicit public comments during that period. We will bring to this body a draft recommendation, again, for the two new proclamations for your consideration at the January 2017 meeting, for final action at the February 2017 meeting. So this will be the standard, what we think will be the standard process for waterfowl and other migratory bird hunting regulations from here on out. So we anticipate this comment period annually and these same two commission meetings to present the proclamations to you. And with that, I can move to the lands proclamation. So I believe this is the last region that we'll be coming to you to proclaim lands that the agency has owned for some time but have yet to be proclaimed. So today in your packet, we have proclamations 1623 through 1628, Anderson Pond Public Hunt Area, Battle Creek Public Hunt Area, Blackburn Fork Wildlife Management Area, Hampton Springs Public Hunt Area, Long Branch Public Hunt Area, and Whites Creek Public Hunt Area. And I've got a slide to show you where these are within Region 3, and the agency recommends passage of these proclamations.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion from the committee? Any discussion from the audience? I have a motion. I have a second concerning Proclamation 16-23 through 16-28, which are Region 3 state lands proclamations. I'll remind you, it's just committee vote. All in favor passage of these proclamations, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Committee voted, and I recommend passage of Proclamation 16-23 through 16-28, Region 3 state lands.
Thank you, Chairman Teague. As advertised, 1623 is Anderson Pond, PHA, 1624 Battle Creek, PHA, 1625 Blackburn Fork, WMA, 1626 Hampton Springs, PHA, 1627 Long Branch, PHA, and 1628 Whites Creek, PHA. We have a recommendation, motion from committee. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion from the commission? Any discussion from the public? Hearing none, are we ready to vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Proclamation 1623 through 1628 as advertised and presented have passed. Commissioner Teague?
Do you have anything else? Nope. All right, thank you very much. This time I'll introduce Mark Goodwin, Chief Wildlife and Forestry Division.
Good morning. Thank you,
Morning.
Mr. Chairman. What I'd like to do right now is to provide for the commission an overview of a proposed wild turkey population research project. This is for information only at this point. And as we know, the wild turkey is a highly prized big game species in Tennessee. This is a graph showing harvest since 1990 in Tennessee, statewide for turkey. And as you can see, during our restoration years, yet we had a steady increase in the wild turkey harvest statewide up until about 2002, where it started to plateau, and since then we've had some up and down fluctuations. On an annual basis, about 120,000 turkey hunters harvest between 30 to 37,000 birds. Looking at the same graph, I'd like to note several significant events over time. In 2000, we had our last restoration stocking. This culminated several decades of trapping and release and transport of wild turkeys, a total of about some 10,000 birds at that point. Just prior to that then, in 1998, TWRA initiated the first fall hunting season for turkeys. Then in spring of 2005, we increased the spring bag limit from 3 gobblers to 4 gobblers. And in 2010, we went from issuing fall harvest permits to a system that we have right now where we have established county bag limits per hunter. Looking at the last 15 years on the trend graph, at the top you look at the statewide, you'll see that there's just a slight increase, really an insignificant increase over that period of time, sort of fairly stable. And then down below are the harvest trends by region. You'll see 3 out of the 4 regions here have somewhat fairly stable to increasing populations. But the thing I'd really like you to focus on right now is the harvest trend that we're seeing in Region 2. And as you see, we've had 2 periods of somewhat of a decline. Most markedly, the last 5 years been a fairly steep decline in Region 2. Region 2 is significant in that approximately 1/3 of the statewide harvest occurs in that region, and historically is where we've had some of our largest flocks of several hundred birds that sometimes resulted in some nuisance complaints also, and issues particularly on agricultural lands. Also, it's where we have some of our most liberal fall harvest limits. Currently there are 16 counties that have a bagging limit of 6 birds per hunter. In any county in any other region, the maximum is 3 birds. And another thing we've seen, looking at the harvest data on the fall harvest, is that 60 to 70% of the birds harvested in Region 2 are hens. So the big question then is what is the cause of the harvest decline? Is it something that, as we've gone into the post-restoration phase, sometimes you see with a lot of restored wildlife populations that they'll overshoot the carrying capacity and then settle down and fluctuate around a lower level. Could be a factor of reduced hunter effort too. We really just don't have good data on hunter effort, so that could have some impact. There is some concern about potential overharvest, and recent research has shown that if looking at they need to look at the total harvest both in spring and fall, and at times, depending on the percentage of the population that's being taken, there is the potential to overharvest. Right now, we just don't have any good figures on what the actual population is. Diseases is another question that comes into play, along with other same things such as predation and poult mortality. Bottom line, it comes down to the fact that really the only good hard data we have at this point is our harvest data, and harvest data definitely has some limitations, and there are a lot of other factors that come into play that we really just don't know at this point. So looking at then some of the management concerns that we have is are our current harvest strategies impacting the annual population and harvest levels. So you look at things like the spring bag limits and the fall bag limits, and while we have not made any changes to the season timing and length, that is being shown that adjustments there can potentially impact harvest and populations. And then, as we've seen in the recent discussion on sandhill cranes, potential impact on recommendations that could come that could potentially increase opportunities and the ramifications then of providing those opportunities and then restricting them afterwards and causing some opposition from hunters to taking away what is being seen as taking away opportunities. And the fall harvest is definitely popular with turkey hunters. Some of the major project goals is then by doing this research project would be to understand current turkey population dynamics. Included in that would be surveys that would be done in the focal counties to as how hunter effort and attitudes can influence harvest and turkey harvest trends. And again, we'd use all this data to better manage the turkey population and set sustainable harvest strategies that are based on the best data available. This project was born through the Southeast Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies Wild Turkey Working Group. The Wild Turkey Working Group is a consortium of state agency biologists and other turkey researchers, and there is a concern. Tennessee is not the only place where somewhat similar declines are being seen, not only in the southeast, but even across the Midwest and Northeast. So that again, at a national level, this is something of some concern. And the primary investigators were involved with the Wild Turkey Working Group and in discussing and developing a research project design that would be comprehensive and would be looking at standardizing data that would be acquired so that studies that might occur in various states could be compared to each other, and looking at regional trends also. Just as a note, Missouri was the first state to undertake this project here in the Southeast, and they began a similar 7-year study in 2014. If ultimately this research project would be approved, we'd be seeking a contract with the University of Tennessee at Knoxville, and this project would span 6 years, 5 of those being field research seasons, which if we would start on it right away, would start in 2017 to 2021 as far as those 5 years of field research. Principal investigators are Dr. David Buehler from the University of Tennessee at Knoxville, Forestry, Wildlife, and Fisheries Department, along with Dr. Craig Harper and Dr. Neelam Pudial. Looking at the disease aspect would be Dr. Richard Gerhold at UT's College of Veterinary Medicine, and our own Roger Applegate from the Wildlife Division. Again, was another person that was very integral in the development of the project concept within the Wild Turkey Working Group. Looking at specifically what is designed is having 10 individual study sites that would be located across several South Middle Tennessee counties. The counties targeted for that would be Wayne, Lawrence, and Giles, where in fact we've seen some of the steepest declines over the last several years, and in 2014 those counties were closed to any kind of fall turkey harvest. And then 2 other counties, which would include Bedford and Murray counties, which generally have had stable to increasing harvests over time. There would be the trapping and radio marking of turkeys, and it would be targeted to have an annual sample of radioed birds of 100 hens, 100 gobblers, and up to 50 poults. At each individual study site, the target would be to have 10 hens and 10 gobblers, which half of each of those groups as adults and juveniles. And then graduate student and research assistants would be monitoring the various movements and just tracking what would be going on with various factors affecting turkeys. Also, again, to emphasize, even though that this project would be centered in South Middle Tennessee, that is designed so that results should be applicable statewide. Some of the commitments of the agency at this point would then be assisting in acquiring access to private lands for trapping and monitoring, be providing a lot of manpower for baiting and trapping the turkeys, and as with any other human dimensions type surveys, providing names and addresses of turkey hunters for those surveys that would be done in the focal counties. Where needed, we would assist with acquiring transmitters from hunter-killed birds, and of course would be coordinating with UT to do, regarding a lot of outreach efforts and keeping everyone informed of what's going on with the project. Specific outcomes we'd be looking at is document reproductive and survival rates and habitat use, not only just on a real local basis, but analyzing that data to try to give us a good picture of how the landscape scale habitat affects turkey populations and trends. Documenting age-specific harvest rates, documenting in the focal counties the hunters' numbers, efforts, and the harvest rates and satisfaction. And then a significant portion of the project also is to holistically look at the role of diseases and that it plays in turkey populations. All of these then would ultimately lead into the development of population and habitat models that we feel the agency needs in order to determine good harvest management strategies. Again, bottom line, this project would provide our agency the data that is needed to maintain stable and sustainable wild turkey populations while maximizing hunter opportunity and satisfaction. If at some point this goes forth for actual commission approval on it, and as we get prepared to go into looking at the turkey harvest regulations, if this project were in fact something that the agency would do, it would be highly desirable if we could stabilize the turkey regulations for 2 years in order to get baseline data on which to measure the effect of any further regulations changes. Due to our concern for the resource and the need to answer questions impacting management, should the commission find favor with this project, we would desire to start this study as early as possible, which would be August 1st of 2016. Again, this would be a 6-year project, including 5 years of field research, which are important from several aspects of covering what is typically the maximum lifespan of a turkey, and also having enough years of data on which to make sound decisions and to get good base trend data. Over the term of the project, it would average out to about $170,000 per year. All of the TWRA funds would be Pittman-Robertson, the federal dollars that are appropriated, so there would be no TWRA license dollars that would be spent on this, and the University of Tennessee would be providing the non-federal match to the PR dollars. We feel that the money that, if it would be spent on this project, would be a wise investment for us to be able to confidently manage turkeys into the future. For those of you, I want to refer back that remember the Tri-County Bear Study in the late 1970s and early 80s, followed by several years of other research under Dr. Michael Pelton at the University of Tennessee. Similar, a large project holistically looking at the various factors affecting bears has been very beneficial to the agency in us successfully managing black bears to this day. Again, at this point, this is informational only, but as the commission has a chance to discuss this, and if the desire is to start this as soon as possible, then we would be looking for the commission to be willing to hear this as a budget expansion item in the May commission meeting. If the commission feels that there's still interest in the project and don't want to move this fast on it, of course, we can put it forth in the regular FY18 budget process, which would move the potential starting date to August 1st of 2017. And of course, the commission can consider any other alternative actions or no action on this. So with that, at this time, be willing to take any questions. I would also like to note that Dr. David Bueller with UT principal researcher, is here to answer any questions, along with Roger Applegate and myself. Thank you. And I also have copies of the research proposal to hand out at the next break to the commissioners.
I got a couple of quick questions. The 2 or 3 counties that you said you had cut back on the fall harvest last year.
Wayne, Lawrence, and
Giles
Giles in 2014 the fall season was cut out.
Have you noticed any improvement in those counties? Has it not been long enough yet to tell if that had an effect?
I will defer to Richard Kirk, Wildlife Program Manager in Region 2.
Commissioner, this past summer, late summer, early fall, we started hearing from landowners and from wildlife officers saying, we're seeing hens with poults. And the norm for the last 3 or 4 years in those counties was we're not seeing hens with poults, and harvest has been going down.
Right. Okay. The second question, since part of the management for the overpopulation in Middle Tennessee was increasing the fall harvest, and that was successful, and it leveled the population, maybe it's what's causing it to fall. Why would you not think common sense would tell you that since you stopped it and had increase, why would you not stop it or lower it in all the counties and see if the population would come back? Since it's not you don't have the same situation in the other 3 regions. Why, that seems like it's, I'm not a biologist, obviously, but that seems common sense to me.
Looking at, one reason is, again, we're not sure whether this is a normal fluctuation. If you look at the trend, this last year went up just a little bit. What causes us some hesitation on that is we were at a high point some point in the past. The harvest went down, went back up again. We had a very good reproduction year, and it's fallen off again. Looking at the pure numbers of birds, of the number of hunters that kill more than 3 birds is pretty insignificant. So again, it causes us, without knowing all these other factors that affect turkey populations, feel kind of uncertain as to whether that's really going to would make any huge difference.
You're talking about hens,
As far as,
the 3 birds, you're talking about hens now.
no, that harvest more than 3 birds at all.
Okay, but the gobblers don't have anything to do with it. Well, they have something to do, but
Well, the
going
fall,
from 3 to 4.
yeah, the fall harvest.
Yeah, you really are weak on
Going
the
from
biology
3 to 4
there,
doesn't
Kyle.
affect the population, so we're talking about hens.
Okay, maybe
Hens
I
affecting-
misheard the question.
Okay,
I
well,
thought
when
you
you
were
said
asking
3, I
about-
just wonder if you're talking about gobblers or hens.
Well, just the number of birds in total, and I can't remember. I know Joy Sweeney will be getting into some of the more specific numbers of the number of birds that would potentially be saved, looking at last year's data. It was
Typically, the
relatively
harvest of
small
gobblers
number.
doesn't affect the population.
It
it's the
may,
hens.
depending on how many of them are being taken, in addition to the number that are taken in the spring. But again, we don't have any kind of population data on which to tell whether, let's say, for example, if we shouldn't be harvesting more than 10% of the population, whether it's total population or simply looking at gobblers. We don't know what that population number is, so again, it's hard to ascertain exactly what is impacting the decline in harvest at this point.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, do we know how the number of hunters has fluctuated? I mean, we're basing our numbers on harvests, which obviously are produced by hunters. So if the number of hunters are on a decline in that area, do we have any reason to think?
We don't even have really good numbers on, that the 120,000 hunter mark is a number we've had several years ago. So exactly how the number of hunters, even on a statewide basis, bumping up and down right now is not data that we have in hand.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, with that, would you like me to move into the season presentations, or is there still things regarding the research project that people would like to ask about?
I just have one comment. I think $1 million is a lot, but I also feel like that turkey in our state is probably the prime resource we have as far as when you compare us to all of our other huntable species in the country, and I want to do whatever it takes to keep it where it's at.
I second that. It's as good as anywhere, and I hate to think that it could ever change. Hopefully, I won't be here if it does, because I don't know what I'd do.
Yeah, we are one of the top, I can't remember, but we are
I'm not sure why we had a commission meeting
up there in the
morning
country for
in
turkey
April,
harvest.
honestly. I feel like it should be an afternoon meeting, but it's just informational. Yeah, I've got some pretty good research on shooting gobblers and what that does to the population. I think if you leave one, you're fine, but so far, that's worked. But it'll be good to get some good information. A lot of states are struggling in the southeast with their turkey populations, and they don't really know why. You know, I'm afraid they're birds, so when it comes to birds, it's not cut and dry. There's so many variables, but any information we can get, you know, it'll be great to have, and it's definitely one of our biggest drawing points as a state. Outdoors, I would say, you know, fishing, turkey hunting is as good as anywhere. So that's really important for us to actively manage these populations that, even though they've been reintroduced and they're very successful, I don't think, you know, you can't, if you get complacent, you know, you're probably backing up when you think you're not. So I'm glad to see that we're actively looking into this. Any more questions from the commission?
At this point, we're just previewing this, as I understand it, and when will we have?
Correct, and after you all have had time to discuss it a little bit, again, we would like to, it is our desire to put that on the May commission meeting as a budget expansion item, if the commission is willing to hear it.
Yeah, the next time we'll have discussion on it will be the May meeting. You will be given a more detailed packet of information to review. And even though this is all non-state license holder dollars, we're stewards of the PR money. And I commend staff and I commend the Budget and Wildlife Committee for taking these steps to give us this preview. We'll have more discussion at the May meeting, and then if it's considered appropriate, vote on it then.
There's no further questions. Guess we will move on to overview of the season setting process.
Okay, this is something that normally happens at the April commission meetings, when we give the commission an overview of the agency recommendations for primarily the resident game species. And just in summary, you know, the agency has had a lot of success over the years, particularly in restoring big game populations across the state, including whitetails, deer, and black bears, wild turkey, and elk. For the most part, these big game populations have stabilized and are enjoyed by thousands of Tennesseans each year. And you'll be, as we get into the specific proclamations, program coordinators will be giving more detailed information at that point that are relative to any of our agency recommendations. And of course, this includes small game and fur bearers. I would, excuse me, like for the commission and also for the viewing audience, just to give a brief overview of the agency's season setting process. And as most of our seasons begin in fall, in about September, seasons begin, and particularly for big game, as the seasons go on, we are collecting harvest data and biological data where we can. And then as we get into January and February, we're still mainly have the small games and fur bearer seasons that are going on. We advertise to the public to provide us comments for consideration in the upcoming season deliberations. And at that time, we're also busy compiling data. And then in February and March, the various agency meetings will occur in which we go through a process to try to come up with unified recommendations. And again, we provide these preview at the April Commission meeting to be acted upon then at the May meeting. And once the final decision is made on those seasons, we finalize our hunting guide, which hopefully gets done in order to be distributed by August 1st. So when we have these meetings, all of our wildlife personnel are involved, and then we certainly try to welcome any other agency people that have an interest in providing input to be involved in the season setting process. It'll happen at the work unit or districts within each region, and then the regions each come up with a unified recommendation. Then we have a big agency meeting in which we look at things such as the resource needs, whatever data that we have, possibly any new information that we've gained from various hunter opinion surveys, and again, field experiences that we have, observations, and any input from our field personnel that are out there on a day-to-day basis, interacting with the hunters and seeing what goes on in the management areas and private lands. We then compile and incorporate those public comments, and of course, consider any agency, or consider commissioner requests, and then come up with the unified voice as far as agency recommendations that we make for any changes, and these will be for the 2016-2017 hunting season. The first proclamation to be presented today will involve several presenters. First of all will be Chuck Yost, Assistant Chief of the Wildlife and Forestry Division. We'll be covering white-tailed deer. Dan Gibbs, who is now our black bear coordinator, operating out of Region 4, will cover the bears. John Mike, Wildlife Program Manager from Region 4, will be covering things related to elk. Steve Bennett, who was our elk biologist for many years, recently retired, and so John will be making that presentation. And then Joy Sweeney, one of the many hats she wears, now she's the wild turkey coordinator and will be covering turkey. Then we move on into the fur bearer proclamation after that, and Roger Applegate, one of many hats he wears as fur bearer coordinator, and he'll cover that. Back to Joy Sweeney for the Wildlife Management Areas Proclamation, the National Wildlife Refuges Proclamation, and also a proclamation on the Holston Army Ammunition Plant. And then we finish up with Colonel Darren Ryder, who's the Chief of Law Enforcement, covering the Manner and Means Proclamation. And we will note that there are no proposed changes to the Small Game Proclamation. So if it's okay with Mr. Chairman, I can go ahead and call up Chuck Yost to begin the presentations on the Big Game Proclamation.